The Mark 8.5 Volkswagen Golf GTI. Last week we had its more powerful brother, the Golf R. This week we have a more attainable GTI. In this video, I'll talk about what this thing is from a technical standpoint, how I feel about the interior space, and obviously what it's like to drive it on our favorite back roads. So let's get started. So the Golf GTI is new for 2025. Well, kind of. The 2025 model year marks the debut of the Mark 8.5 generation, and what comes with that, we got some minor changes. We got new headlights, new front bumper, updated infotainment system with the new infotainment screen, and unfortunately we lost a 6-speed manual gearbox, meaning a 7-speed dual clutch is the only option. From a technical standpoint, everything else is basically the same. This car obviously sits on Volkswagen's MQB Evo platform, meaning we get a strut front suspension and a multilink setup in the back. The S and SE trims get regular passive dampers, the top Autobahn gets dynamic chassis control, or in other words, adaptive dampers. So let's quickly talk about the trims. We start with a base S for around $32,000, then we have an SE starting at a little over 37 grand, and that's what we have today. Finally, the top Autobahn costs a little over $42,000 and gives you some extra features like 3-zone climate control, leather seats, head-up display, or adaptive suspension. Now, under the hood obviously sits the E888 engine, a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, which delivers 241 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque. You might remember from our Golf R review that the R received a 13 horsepower bump with the facelift, but nothing has changed in the GTI. And just as a side note, Europe also gets a 300 horsepower collapsible variant. Isn't that cool? I mean, 300 horsepower in front-wheel drive, maybe I'll take that back. But there are some other changes, and I would love to get an opportunity to test out this car. Now, as I said, the 6-speed manual gearbox is gone, meaning we only have a 7-speed DSG, and the power obviously goes down to the front wheels via an eLSD up front. Now, before we talk what it's like to drive this thing on our favorite back road, let's take a look inside and talk about the interior space. Okay, so we're inside the Mark 8.5 Volkswagen Golf GTI. Now, as I said in my review of the Golf R, the Mark 7 generation of the Golf was that prime example of great German engineering. It had good quality materials, great ergonomics, and it was super easy to use. Now, that has changed with the Mark 8, and while I am getting used to this sterile, clean design, it still doesn't match the ergonomics of the Mark 7. But there are some changes for better in the Mark 8. We have real buttons on the steering wheel. Yes, they're back, so it's much easier to control the gauge cluster and the driver assistance systems. We also have new technology, so this massive infotainment system now runs an updated software with a new UI, and it is noticeably faster. There is an improvement in terms of usability and graphical interface, and we still have haptic controls with shortcut buttons for drive modes or climate right underneath the display, but the system itself, it's not as frustrating to use, so that's a step in the right direction. I just hate the fact that I have to use the freaking sliders under the display to control my temperature and volume. Now, from a usability perspective, this is a Golf, so this car shines. The center console is pretty practical. We have a dedicated spot for a wireless charger and some cup holders. The door pockets also offer a good amount of space, and since it's a hatch, you can drop the seats and the cargo area becomes pretty practical. Now, the front seats are epic for this segment. I'm not gonna lie, they're relatively supportive and are very comfortable, so even after driving this car for a couple of hours non-stop, you will not feel fatigued. Now, moving to the back seat is definitely tighter if we compare it to a Civic, which is a segment leader when it comes to space, but being 6'1", I had no issues fitting by myself, and I can travel back there for a little bit. We have the mid-SE model here with rear climate vents, which is nice, but if you step up to the Autobahn, you'll get dedicated climate control and heated rear seats, which is not so obvious in this class. Overall, the cabin is a pretty nice place to be with great quality materials, not so good ergonomics, but you know what, I can care about that a little bit less. Let's head to our favorite back road now and see how the new GTI drives. Okay, so we're behind the wheel of the Mark 8.5 Golf GTI. Last week we tested the R and I was pretty impressed with its capabilities. Let's see what the GTI can do. I'm gonna put it into sport mode, floor it. Hint of turbo lag, hint of delay from the DSG, but this thing is pretty quick. Typically in Volkswagen fashion, it's an underrated engine. I don't think it only makes 241 horsepower. If anything, it makes 241 horses to the wheels. The 7-speed dual-clutch transmission is our only option right now, meaning no more 6-speed manual. I know some may complain, but this is the reality we live in. Because of very strict European regulations, Volkswagen had to get rid of that 6-speed manual, and it's just cheaper to offer one transmission option in the world. But the DSG is an excellent unit. Volkswagen has been developing it for over 20 years now, and they made it very, very great unit. It's pretty responsive in manual mode. When we use paddle shifters, it may not feel as aggressive as the transmission that the Golf R gets, but it's there. It's up there, and I have no complaints. Again, the engine, fantastic tuning, very smooth and linear power delivery, no dips, no issues with heat management. It's a really, really awesome engine, and if you're a Volkswagen enthusiast, you know that it's pretty tunable, so you can do much more than what factory gives you. Let's talk about handling now as we approach a section of corners. No adaptive dampers on the SE trim that we have. That's only reserved to Autobahn, but that's okay. Cheaper maintenance cost, easier to replace your springs or shocks if you want to do this. And what we get out of the box is a pretty nice setup. There is a noticeable body roll, but overall the Golf handles pretty nicely. One thing that I would change for sure is the alignment, and I would put a set of stickier tires. Out of the factory we get Goodyears that are all seasons, Eagle Sports. What I would do is I would probably put Bridgestone RE71 RS's. So apparently also Volkswagen mentioned that in the Mark 8 they tried to eliminate understeer. That obviously hasn't happened, but the ELZ that's up front does a pretty good job putting down the power. The front end maybe doesn't feel as nice as it does in a Civic Type R or the Elantra N, but those two cars are in a different league. This is pretty nice as an out-of-the-box setup, that entry-level performance car. The brakes are also pretty okay. For a single piston setup, I have no complaints. The brake pedals is nicely calibrated, so I can modulate the braking power without any issues. It doesn't work like an on and off switch. And there's one thing that I would change in the Mark 8.5 is the steering. It is slightly better, maybe feels like it has more feedback than Mark 8 did, but still, it's far from being perfect. It's really fun to drive. Definitely more fun to drive than a Jetta GLI. Maybe not as direct as the Civic Si is, but yeah, no complaints about it. Alrighty, let's slow down and put it into comfort mode and talk about what it's like to live with the GTI on a daily basis. The GTI has always been that enthusiast choice that do everything one car. It has to be fun to drive, but it also has to be comfortable, fuel efficient, and it excels in that role. The cabin isolation is amazing for a compact car. It's very quiet, minimal road noise, minimal wind noise. I have no complaints about it. The seats are comfortable, seating position is great, and because it has smaller dimensions, it's easier to maneuver it. We don't need big cars. I don't know what's up with us Americans wanting to get huge cars just to show our status symbol, and if you drive a smaller car, you're a worse person. That's just, I still can't believe that that's the way we think. But the GTI is that perfect size as a daily vehicle. Really, you have a hatch design, so you can fit the stuff in the trunk. The backseat is somewhat roomy, and from a technology perspective, they fixed everything that Mark 8 got wrong. So yeah, it's a really nice product for an enthusiast that's looking for that all-around car that also has to put a smile on the face. The GTI will not let you down. So let's head into the final thoughts and summarize it. Okay, so let's sum up the Mark 8.5 Golf GTI. Is there an improvement over the Mk8? Yes, in terms of software and how they developed it. From the driving dynamics perspective, nothing has changed. From the comfort perspective, nothing has changed either. It's still that do everything one car for enthusiasts, which is fun to drive, but is also very comfortable. So from a daily driving perspective, you have great fuel economy. You can easily average high 30s on a highway, low 30s, high 20s in the city. It has great technology that works when it comes to driver assistance systems. The suspension is very compliant over road imperfections, and the engine has just enough power and that low-end torque that you appreciate in turbocharged engines. Now, for the money, it's not as engaging as the Elantra N, and I know the Elantra N is more of a competitor to the Golf R, but it costs just as much as our tested SE. The Civic Si is maybe more fun to drive, but it feels much more like a cheaper product. The GTI gives you that feeling of that entry-level premium product, which is not the case in Europe. Nobody will tell you that GTI is an entry-level luxury product in Europe, but that's what it feels like in the US. Anyways, if you guys have any questions about this thing, drop a comment and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you all later.